Chelsea had an early sending off in this game. This was predicted to set the tempo of the game as Arsenal came into the game off of an impressive winning streak. However, Enzo Maresca's men executed their tactical understanding and execution well. Let's take a look at what happened. Chelsea being the blue and Arsenal being the red, let's first take a look at how the game unfolded prior to the sending off. Chelsea approached the game in a 4-2-3-1 formation. Their intention was to cover central space as much as possible. This would be done by Chelsea building up in a 3-2 shape that would have Moises Caicedo and Reece James as the two pivots. These two players would add incredible defensive coverage in the center of the park, which is where we began to see the problem with Arsenal in this game, but more on that later. Chelsea would find it challenging to bypass Arsenal, as Arsenal would also look to compact the center of the pitch. This would make it challenging for Chelsea at times to build up and effectively progress possession upfield, so we would see Chelsea adapt to this. Malo Gusto would overlap on the right-hand side. He would aid Estevão Willian on the right wing area, as Chelsea would play long balls into the wide areas because Arsenal would compact the center of the pitch as stated. These long balls forward would catch Arsenal out sometimes, as Arsenal would push upfield, especially down the wide areas. They would overlap both their fullbacks. Chelsea would also use João Pedro as a target man at times, would for the most part drift out wide, then receiving the pass either from the Chelsea goalkeeper or from the Chelsea players deep. What would make Chelsea so effective in their style of play would be that fact that they were able to consistently find pockets of space in between the Arsenal players. This would be worsened by the fact that Chelsea, as the game progressed, would begin to build up more effectively, being able to bypass Arsenal's initial lines of press. Enzo Maresca's game plan was for Chelsea to bypass the pressure from Arsenal, then find wide players who would look to take on Arsenal's wide men in 1v1 situations. However, Chelsea were struck with a calamity in the first half as Moises Caicedo was sent off. Chelsea then needed to adapt. Let us first take a look at how Arsenal approached the game in order to understand what Chelsea looked to do. Arsenal approached the game in a 4-2-3-1 formation where we would see them build up in a back 3-1 shape. Their build-up efforts were thwarted by Chelsea multiple times in this game, as Chelsea would look to have Reece James for the most part man mark the Arsenal pivot Zubimendi. This made it harder for Arsenal to progress the ball upfield, so they, like Chelsea, would play long balls forward. The difference, however, would be in the defensive execution between these two teams. Arsenal's wide men would consistently have to drop deep in order for them to find space, except when Arsenal would transition against Chelsea. But even then we would see the Chelsea's defenders make really well-executed recoveries. Mikel Merino, the Arsenal centre forward, would drop deep. He would oftentimes find it challenging to be a target man against the Chelsea defenders. Arsenal, as stated, would have both Jurrien Timber and Ricardo Calafiori push upfield. But this was not a big problem for Chelsea, as they were able to cut the passing lanes Arsenal would attempt to create quite effectively. This made it easier for Chelsea to attack the Arsenal defense. But after the sending off we would see Chelsea effectively adapt. They would sit deeper, looking to close off the space around their 18-yard box. Looking to hit Arsenal on the counter, Chelsea would then bring on a target man Liam Delap. He would also display good hold-up play for Chelsea. Initially we did see Arsenal finding it challenging to attack Chelsea's 18-yard box as Mike Merino dropped deep. But after the sending off we would expect Arsenal to then find it better to attack the final third. However, ironically, it did the opposite. Not only did Chelsea's deep tactical adaptation make it harder for Arsenal to attack through the center, but their priority to attack the space in behind made it that much more harder for Arsenal to push up in numbers, being cautious with regards to Chelsea on the transition. Both clubs conceded from crosses into the box, which does indicate that both teams were able to nullify each other quite well. However, Chelsea were the more impressive team against Arsenal, as they looked threatening early on, and they would keep up the threat even after the red card. Arsenal were find space at times and created good chances and have good shots on target. Final score: Chelsea 1, Arsenal 1.